I'm Margie Smith, the moderator for the Upper Keys Business and Professional Women's Political Forum 2022. This event, nonpartisan, strictly educational for the community, has been put on every other year since 1986 by this organization. We're very excited tonight to have all of the Village of Islamorada candidates, Key Largo wastewater, we've got a Senate candidate, we've got a governor candidate, and of course District 120, as well as for the state, as well as congressional candidates. So please come join us. I'm so excited to have Carlos from the Village recording all of this for posterity. Come on out, it's a great way of finding out what's going on with all these candidates, what they're for, why they're running, so you can make an educated decision November 8th.
Buddy, here is your question. You have 90 seconds to answer. The Village has historically employed lobbyists to represent the interests of the community in Tallahassee and in DC. Given the taxpayer money used for these services, residents should have a voice in legislative priorities. What do you think the #1 issue our lobbyists should advocate for, and how do you plan to collect resident input?
I mean, there's many things. We can talk about traffic, we can talk about vacation rentals, we can talk, they're multifaceted. You know, there's lots of things that our lobbyists can work, you know, that works for us. All right, like one thing, just the aqueducts putting the new water line through Islamorada. Okay, our lobbyists help us in that resiliency grant and got $17 million for the new water main going through that's roughly going to be about $35 million. So I think, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I can call our lobbyists about anything, and I think that there is no one thing that our lobbyist is hired for. Okay, they can help us with clean water, they can help us with the traffic situation, they can help us with the building, the Bpw stuff in Tallahassee. I think that there's not really one thing that our lobbyists just do. Every time I've reached out to them, they've always been very well, you know, very expediently to me to get an answer. I've met with all three of the Dean Cannon, Ryan Matthews, and Joseph. I think they're doing a great job, and sorry.
Several candidates running opposed recently passed measures to protect renters. Given the ongoing housing crisis in Islamorada, what policy actions will you take to support the ability of our workforce to rent in this community?
Affordable housing is one of the most difficult issues that we face in Islamorada. We have had a lot of problems with it, I believe, because in the past, the councils have not placed affordable housing and workforce housing as a high priority. In our comprehensive plan, it calls for us to create 1,200 affordable housing units over the 20 years that our comp plan was in effect. And yet we have 125 of that 1,200 that we have in our comp plan. I think that we need to establish the fact that this is one of the highest priorities that we have anywhere. We need to work so much harder to get affordable housing, not only deed-restricted affordable housing, but we need to encourage people to rent to local people instead of vacation rentals is a huge issue. And we have loads of illegal vacation rentals, and without proper enforcement, we just, you know, give up so much of our housing to vacation people instead of people that work and live here. And I think that we need to really address that issue. Thank you.
You each have 30 seconds for closing statements. 30 seconds.
I'd like to ask for your vote if you live in Islamorada. And I want to bring something up real quick in my closing is, when I grew up, it was the Keys was Ocean Reef to Key West. We were all one community, so I don't know where this has come now that some of us, there's a little division there, but we are one. And anyways, I I feel like we can, I can still do a very good job. I feel like I've done a great job. I'm big on unity. I'm very proactive. I was on the Florida League of Mayors Board of Directors my first year as mayor, and I look forward to continue to do more for Alamorada. It's a very special place. Our family homesteaded here in the middle 1800s, the Russells and the Penders. So thank you very much.
I think that one of the things that I would like to see changed in Alamorada, I'd like to see more community engagement in our government process. Our residents have amazing lives. There's such diversity and a creative vision within our community, and I would like to encourage more public participation. At budget hearings, the members of the public were given 3 minutes to talk about a $75 million budget. I'd like to give residents a louder voice in our government. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening. You each have 30 seconds to introduce yourselves. So I'm going to start with Jim.
I'm Jim Marie. I think most of you know me. I've lived in Alamorada my entire life. Represented the city of Alamorada for 10 years, twice as mayor. Coached at Carl Shores, taught schools, raised my children here at school at Carl Shores. I'm a lifelong resident of Florida Keys. I fully understand exactly what's needed in our district, and particularly Monroe County. And I am your city and state representative right now, and I certainly look forward to representing you again the next 2 years. Thank you.
My name is Adam Gentle, and I am the Democratic nominee for Florida House District 120. I am so happy to be in this room today with like-minded people and the people that will decide the next election. Our midterm elections will be decided by the women in our community. Who we send to Tallahassee and who we send to Washington, D.C. will be the product of the votes of the women in this room and in our communities. Thank you for having this forum.
Why did you support Senate Bill 2508, which would have reduced the water flowing south to the Everglades and was overwhelmingly opposed by your constituents? How can you effectively advocate for your constituents when the local priorities conflict with state leadership?
2508 bill jumped out at the last second, as we all know. Senate came to the floor. We sent back a blank piece of paper to the Senate, which basically told the Senate we absolutely did not support that bill. It was a blank piece of paper signed by Speaker Sprouls. 2508 then was massaged and twisted and turned into where a number of the environmental groups said it was good. Yes, was it initially geared towards agriculture? Absolutely. It did not finish that way. It did not finish as an agriculture bill. It ended up finishing as a water bill that, by the way, whether any of us like it or not, there are over 8 million people live in South Florida, and the South Florida Water Management District must deal with drinking water, our aquifer, farm water, and and water for farmers. We can't have any one particular. But it did not stop the flow of water to the south. The projects that were fully funded stayed fully funded from day one. The projects that were fully funded are still fully funded and have never stopped motion. Everything was in motion. Everything, if you codified by everything in that bill, allowed everything that was in progress to continue forward without interruption from. Sorry, that's green or yellow. Anyway, from start to finish. So while that bill appeared really, really bad in the beginning, we made sure it did not finish bad, and we all know the governor ultimately vetoed it. So at the end of the day, that bill is no longer in case, but it will come up again because it was an appropriations bill. Thank you.
Adam, you have 90 seconds. Given Florida's pressing insurance crisis and Monroe County's role as a donor county for the state-sponsored Citizens Property Insurance, would you support reducing rate caps so long as they are tied to stronger building codes? If not, then what do you propose?
Okay. I believe in the right circumstances, I do support lowering rate caps. But I think our insurance crisis is more complex than that. What we have here is a market that's fundamentally bankrupt because we've crushed private industry here in Monroe County and actually across the state of Florida. Citizens has undercut private insurance by 50%, killing our market. And it's not often that you'll hear a Democrat say it, but I'm a huge proponent of the free market. And if we have a vigorous free market in this state with our insurance companies by bringing new ones in and competing, that will automatically drive our costs down. Now, one idea is one that Charlie Crist has out on the campaign trail. And that is to say that If you're going to sell car insurance in the state of Florida, you're also going to have to offer property insurance in the state of Florida. And when we talk about insurance, it's also important, Margie, for this question here, we're talking about wind insurance. There's a whole other area of insurance that's controlled by the federal government, FEMA, which is the water and flood insurance. So when we're talking about citizens right now, we're talking about, wind insurance. I hope that answers your question. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to having a market, not interfering with it, or if you are going to participate in that market, make sure you're doing it in a way that makes it more competitive, not less competitive.
Jim, you have 30 seconds for final comments.
Thank you. Well, I said 2 years ago that I'd go to Tallahassee and represent this district with dignity, pride, and honor. I've done that. I sent 6 bills across the finish line. That's unheard of as a freshman legislator. I brought home over $80 million to this district, all of which, really the majority of that money was all environmentally. 20 million in stewardship in 21, 20 million in stewardship in 22, along with numerous other things. I also ran a bill for mental health. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed the appropriation, but I got it across the finish line. Unfortunately, again, he vetoed that. So, sitting on 8 committees last year, 7 the previous year, I'm fully aware.
Dignity, pride, and honor. I would love to have a representative that carried on a campaign with dignity, pride, and honor. From the beginning of this race, I was under the impression that we were going to talk about the issues, focus on the issues, and not personal attacks, not character assaults. My opponent has spent the past week stuffing mailboxes across this community with lies that disparage my character, my trustworthiness, and my career, and I don't believe that's the kind of politics we want in the Keys, or anywhere in Florida, or anywhere in the United States of America.
Hi, I'm Mark Gregg. I've lived here for 37 years. I have 37 years of professional experience and local knowledge and dedication to my community. I've served on the Village Council for 6 years, the LPA, the Achievable Housing Committee, numerous not-for-profit organizations. I was a member of the Rotary Club. I was a member of the Bpw for a while, and built affordable housing here. I think experience is a big deal. In order to be successful on the council, that experience is a requirement. So I think I'm the best one for the job, and I hope I get to keep it because I really like doing it. Thank you.
I'm Mary Barley. I've lived in the Keys since 1998. It's been my residence, and I've been fishing here since the 1970s. And I want to do a good job for Islamorada. There's no doubt that I have worked the last 30 years to make the whole Keys better through my work for the Everglades. And so I look at it and I think now I'd like to take my turn in Islamorada to see if we can really make a difference and make this place an even better place to live. Thank you.
Mark, you'll have 90 seconds. Historically, the village does not address social service needs, leaving families on their own despite the known difficulties of living here. Simultaneously, we have recently seen one-off disbursements of village funds to nonprofits without a process or criteria. Should the village take on a stronger role in administering social services? And do you plan to support social service needs while on the council?
I think the village has committed itself to taking care of the people that live here. And so various groups come before us from time to time and they ask for help, and we try to give it to them when we can. So we didn't have a process in place. We still really don't have one in place. And certainly there is room for improvement there. But we have children here. We have people that live on sailboats, which that community functions as our de facto affordable housing units. And we have needs there. You don't see it in a community with our kind of wealth, but it's there. So we've given away money to different groups to support the Good Health Clinic in Tavernier and the one, I can't remember the name, but it's a mobile dentistry van. And those are essential things that take care of children and families that can't handle it, and they deserve it. And with the welfare, I think we can afford to do that. But I do think we can make an improvement in the process by having an application and better vetting, which we did do some. So that would definitely be a room for improvement in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Succession planning is the key to the longevity of all institutions. There was no village manager to facilitate a learning curve with the current council. In the wake of staff departures and council changes, how would you maintain continuity in the village?
I think that hopefully our new village manager will do a better job than we've had in the past. That has a lot to do with what policy that the council sets. And if the council can set the proper priorities and policies and put them in place, we can have a staff that is not weaponizing itself against its citizens, but is actually working for them, with them, to help them make a difference. So how I see it is, if it's not working, when we get in there, if there's new people in, we need to look at that, and if it's not working right away, we need to do something, so that we can have a legacy as we move on, and we are either getting reelected or we step aside, to know that our community is the best community it can be because we have put in place the policies that need to be there. They are not there now, and we need to do something to make a difference. There's too many people complaining constantly about what's happening at the village hall. And I hope that I can make a difference. And I can, and well, I don't hope, I think I know I can make a difference. I have. I've shown and proven that I can do it. And I would like to try and show you that I will do the best that I can for all the residents. I will advocate for you. I will be your advocate in everything that I do. I do not have any interest in making money here. If I get elected, I am working only for you. And that's what I will do from the day I start. Thank you.
Thank you. 30 seconds for final comments.
I've really enjoyed working with the other council members over the last 2 years trying to resolve the issues and challenges that we face. The two biggest ones are the lack of affordable housing and the loss of the building permits, the BPass or build out. I was a real estate lawyer and a land use lawyer for 20 years here, and I think I'm uniquely qualified to address those issues, and I hope to get a chance to do that in the future. It's going to take experience and time and knowledge to get the job done. Thank you.
Incumbents, which is what messed me up. I need to make sure the incumbents are on the far side, so we're always headed in the right direction here. Both of you, of course, are not incumbents. So welcome, thank you for being here. I'm going to start with TQUM. Thank you for joining us this evening. You have 30 seconds to introduce yourself.
Good evening, my name is Tuan T.Q. Nguyen. I'm running for U.S. Senate as a non-partisan candidate. Our country is facing enormous challenges. High gas prices, illegal immigration, inflation. This is the time for us to work together. This is not the time for us to resort to partisan rhetoric. Rhetoric helps candidates, but only real practical solution can help you. As an engineer, I focus on solutions. As an independent candidate, I pledge to work with all parties to make sure that your needs, Floridian as well as American, will be addressed. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephen B. Grant. I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in Maryland, came to Florida in 2007 to go to law school because it's warm by the beach. And so after going and passing law school, passing the Florida bar, started my own law practice in Boynton Beach. I saw what was going on with the government there, and so I ran against a 5-time incumbent, became the youngest mayor in the state of Florida back in 2016. My goal as a non-party affiliate is to bring civil discourse back to the United States because we all are on Team USA here, and we need to act like it.
Back to TQ. Your question, you have 90 seconds to answer. Regarding the Inflation Reduction Act, how exactly will you ensure that those funds trickle down to South Florida communities?
Well, if we're talking about the inflation reductions, I do not think that reduce the inflation. Though the bill did help in a large part to help all the people to pay for their medical care and health care, and subsidize into the electric car, which is the part that I agree with. But in fact, inflation reduction can only happen when you go to the market before the law. Let's say a basket of groceries costs $20. It has to be $15 or less than $20 after the law is being applied. So I'm saying this is a help to a pocket of citizens, but it is not at all a reduction of inflation. Thank you.
Next question is for Steve. Everglades restoration is critical to the environment and economic viability of the Florida Keys. What will you do to ensure Everglades restoration stays on track?
So one of the things that I was on was the wastewater treatment board. And that's and so I saw how many septic tanks are near canals that lead into the Everglades and lead into our freshwater systems. And so that is one thing that I'd like to help pay for, is that there's so many communities that aren't spending the money to go from septic to sewer, and I think that is vitally important. The other thing is that the current districts that are managing the Everglades are not using local flora and fauna to help reduce the nutrient levels. They are using chemical or mechanical means and are not protecting our environment. They are making it worse, and so that we would have to spend more money in the future. I am, and always have been, a candidate for environment beautification. And one of the things that I was able to do is to help restore the reefs in Boynton Beach by having a lionfish derby. And it is amazing to see how much better the coral reefs are because we are fixing the problems. And so I would want, as a federal government, to help eradicate the invasive species and help prevent other invasive species coming into our Everglades.
You both have an additional 30 seconds for our final comment, starting with TQ.
When I run this campaign, I said I will jump in and help both parties. A lot of people say that, how can you do that? You will help one party, and this is my proposal. Today, if there is a bill, I'm talking about a good bill put into the floor, by one side will be blocked or one will be ignored by the other side. But imagine the same bill, the same content introduced by an independent senator, TQ, to the Senate floor. I gave the excuse for both sides to vote for it. So all the good bill will be passed. Thank you.
30 seconds for final comment.
Well, thank you again for having me here. It was a long journey, and I'm glad to be here. What I would like to say is that our government is accountable to the people. I represent people, not a political party. You know, my 6 years as part of a nonpartisan position as mayor, I saw what happens and what the political parties do to our government to benefit themselves. The main thing that I see is the taxes that they are not paying as tax-exempt organizations, the campaign financing that super PACs have. And so that is one of the reasons why I'm campaigning as a no-party affiliate without a super PAC, is because I feel that those things are wrong, and it has put me in a little bit of a disadvantage, but I'm thinking that I will be able to cross the finish line, because what we should not do is choose a lesser of two evils. We should choose the best candidate.
Thank you for joining us this evening. You each have 30 seconds to introduce yourselves. I'm going to start with Pete.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everybody out tonight. My name is Peter Batchelor. I've lived in this community 37 years. I'm currently your mayor. I've been sitting on council for a year. And sitting on council for almost 2 years now. And I'm a private land use planner. And as a private land use planner, I know a lot about building and zoning. Thank you.
Yes, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Jolin. As a small business owner and environmental advocate raising a family here in Isla Mirada, I look forward to bringing some diversity to the council. I am confident that diligence and perseverance will allow us to find solutions to the many challenges we face here in Isla Mirada. When I'm elected, I will focus on creating a strategic plan for our town, untangling the code, and advocating for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, you will have 90 seconds to answer this question. Water quality is the foundation of life and linchpin of the local economy in Isla Mirada. The state is funding Everglades restoration and working expeditiously to achieve completion. The Marine Sanctuary is undergoing a complete revision of its zoning and management in an attempt to restore our coral reefs. What is your plan to address water quality issues on the local and regional level?
Well, there are actually other areas that can be opened up. They recently opened up 41 crossing the state. That's bringing more fresh water through the sluice as it should. The natural flow is being restored. But there are other areas. There's an area north of Key Largo, right on US 1. And that area was filled in many years ago to create the causeway. If that were to be removed and taken back and allow freshwater flow, ocean water flow underneath, we would have much better flooding conditions. It would change drastically. If you look the mangrove area. That mangrove area now is full of water. It's full of water on the bay side, but not on the ocean side. There's a big difference in the levels. Those levels should be the same. Water should be made to flow through there. It's a big project and a big idea. I don't really think if anybody's going to go in that direction. That's all.
Elizabeth, again, you have 90 seconds. For many in this community, home ownership is aspirational at best. We know the challenges and limitations coming in 2023, but more can and should be done to address the housing crisis. What additional policy measures will you spearhead to make homeownership affordable and achievable for working families?
Well, thanks for the question. The reason I love this forum is because the questions are heady and deep and they require lots of thought. But what you're addressing is our affordable housing crisis, and I think at a certain point, immediately, we need to realize that it is not affordable to live in Islamorada for many people who work here. When we address and acknowledge that issue, then we can get out of the problem identifying space and get into solutions. We need to be innovative and creative in addressing this. If we put together a strategic plan, we can put affordable housing into that framework and thereby have a conversation and a context through which to address this issue. And I do feel confident that we cannot build our way out of an affordable housing crisis. We just simply do not have the room in this community, on this island, with the infrastructure that we have. It's a challenge, and I'm not really extremely optimistic about finding a solution for that problem.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Pete, you have 30 seconds for closing comments.
You know, there's something very important coming up in June of 2023, and that's the moratorium on permitting of residential units in the Florida Keys. You don't hear too many people talking about it, but it affects not only our residential units, but it affects our affordable housing. Affordable housing is critical to our community. It needs to be changed, it needs to be modified. However, without those allocations, we can't do anything. The allocations are very, very important. 2023 is a moratorium. You all need to pay attention to that fact. It's very simple. When they say no more permits, they mean it.
Thank you, Pete. Closing comments.
Thanks. You know, I just want to speak to why I'm running. I want to participate in the democratic process here. I appreciate the work that our council has done. I do not agree with everything they've done, but I do give them a lot of credit. I hope that I feel confident I can add to the dialogue and add to the solutions that we can find to our challenges. And as someone mentioned, and bring some civil discourse to our community. I think we need it, and I'll look forward to that.
So you each have 30 seconds to introduce yourselves. I'm going to start with Sue.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Sue Hahn. I've been on the Key Largo Wastewater Board since 2015. This will be my third time running. Yay. I want to come back. I want to address one thing that's been going around. You might have all been hearing it. Islamorada is our customer. What we do at Key Largo Wastewater, the decisions we make affects you all, just so you know. I've been in the Keys since 2002. I'm active in the Coast Guard Auxiliary for Flotilla 13-8, Station Islamorada. I'm active in Tavernier Volunteer Fire Department. I used to drive the rehab to their events, but the vehicle died.
My name's Tim Maloney. I was born and raised right here in the Keys. I worked at the charter boat place right next door growing up. So I'm well aware of the cost of living in the Keys. I'm also very, very aware of our fragile ecosystem we have, an unusual ecosystem we have down here in the Keys. I work for Publix. I'm retired Publix. I worked there for 32 years. I ran 11 stores and over 2,000 employees. I finished up as a district manager down here, and I want to continue my seat on the board. I've been there for about 15 months already. Thank you.
30 seconds.
All right, Robbie Majeski, and I had to write this down to keep it under 30 seconds, and I practiced. The selections, I apologize for reading. The selection of the Key Largo Wastewater Commissioner is important to the people of Almirada as well as to Key Largo. So please, Almirada residents, pay attention to this race. In 2012, Andy Tobin and I were proponents of the interlocal agreement that brought all the wastewater from Almirada up to Key Largo to be treated. This was to be an exact agreement and an equal agreement. The exact cost of this treatment, though, has never ever been verified. We guessed at how much we were going to pay. Recently, the Key Largo board voted to lower the Key Largo rates, but keeping the same Almirada rates. One of my top priorities will be to verify and equalize the cost of wastewater for Almirada and Key Largo. Thank you.
Sue, since being on the board, how have you lobbied for public funds at the state and federal level? And hold that very close, please.
How would I lobby?
Yes,
the same way we've been doing it successfully. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Carlos. We've gotten, thanks to the Federal Reserves and our lobbyist work, we've accumulated, we're now working on actively $17 million worth of improvements. It's not costing any of the customers any money. It's all federal and state money. We've got a telemetry project that's going to improve our system. We're going to know what's leaking before it leaks and it affects anyone's backup. We've got a fire alarm system that's going to spray chemicals now so our grinder pumps don't go out. And the last one is our biggest accomplishment, solar. We're now the largest private independent solar producer in Monroe County.
Tim, you have 90 seconds to answer the question. Failing sewage systems are a huge concern with flooding from storms. What would you do to ensure that the Key Largo wastewater system is prepared for the next flood event?
Well, like any business, I'm glad this question's asked because there's a lot of things going around about it, and I'm going to try to sum it up. As any business, there's always room for improvement. But I want to make it clear, during that time that we had the flooding just recently, there wasn't one call in for a backup. We managed our system thanks to the employees there. They worked around the clock for 35 hours straight. So yes, one of the things we learned, and the question is what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Is our communication wasn't that well. We communicated through Facebook to limit your use to flushing the toilet, using the sewer. We also went on our website, but people didn't go to our website. So we're working on something where signage that we can get the message out better. Maybe a call system that can call customers to let them know the limit in low-lying areas. Low-lying areas are where we've had tampering. We had people lift sewer lids off to drain their yard, which came from the Florida Bay. So they had the Florida Bay coming into our system. So yes, we did have a lot of water, and we are doing better to do that. But one of the things is our communication system to our customer, and we're working hard on that. Thank you.
All right, Robbie, when the Key Largo wastewater treatment district was created, the plan was to lower costs once capital expenditures were covered. We expected rates would go down as time went on. With 99% of homes connected now to sewer, what needs to happen before rates can be lowered?
First of all, we did lower rates by 15% the last year I was on the board. One of the things that we have done is we have gotten a lot of grants. I've gone to Washington and Tallahassee many times and gotten grants. But strictly lowering rates as a political thing is not right. I want to try to turn the board into more like the electric co-op, where after 2 or 3 years, if we have extra money, then we can return it to the citizen. You can't keep lowering rates when the cost of living goes up. We just voted, the board, I'm not on the board anymore, the board just voted a 10.5% increase to all salaries. Our chemicals are up, our electrical costs are up. Pretty soon, this year's budget is in the red, except for the fact that we have grant money coming in. We're spending $1 million more than we're producing in rates, but we have grant money. We have $15 million, we have so much grant money coming in, and we're spending it because it's been considered free money. This free money is gonna go away someday. We need to budget our money more carefully, and if we have excess, we do it just like the electric co-op. We return it to the citizens every 2 or 3 years. I worked on this board since we constructed it. I know everything about this board. I've been to DC, I've been to Tallahassee so many times. We have interlocal agreements with Monroe County, with Alvarado. We go to Washington, and I think I can really continue to help get on this board. The only reason I'm not on the board is because I ran trying to be county commissioner and help all the citizens of Monroe County. Oh, red flag.
Sue, you have 30 seconds for closing comments.
I have this really spiffy closing all written out. You're not going to get it. What you're going to get is facts. This is a Paul Harvey version. We have $9 million in debt left within the next 4.5 years at our current rate of paying off $1.5 million. Our finance department is advising us we will be debt free. We have, Raftella says our rate study. They are suggesting that at our next rate review, we consider doing an automatic cost of living increase. The board soundly rejected that. I really don't like that.
Before I ask for your vote tonight, I want you to have a clear understanding how important it is to select the right candidate for this position. We manage over a $19 million budget annually. Our wastewater plant processes over 2 million gallons of waste a day. It's big business. I hope you will agree with my experience in big business and also with my commitment to this community that I am the right candidate for this position, and I care very much, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
All right, the Key Largo Wastewater Treatment District Board is a $135 million business. It's not a place for a community activist, for someone wanting to give back to the community. It's a place for a business owner. There's not a single business owner on the board at this moment. I'm a business owner. We need people with real business sense. The rate study they just did recommended a rate decrease, but it also recommended indexing for inflation. They decided not to index for inflation. Paying off a debt that we have at 2.5% interest rate when you have 10% inflation is no longer a smart move to do.
Thank you, Robbie. You each have 30 seconds to introduce yourselves. We'll start with Henry.
I'd like to open with the words of John Maxwell. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The leader adjusts the sails. I look forward to adjusting those sails in the future with your help. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Casey Watkins. I'm managing partner at Starbucks in Key Largo. I represent our working class and the long-term future of Islamorada, championing a true voice for our village.
Thank you.
I am Angel Forden. I have advocated for everyone in our environment for over 10 years, attending over 50 council meetings. No one else has. Half the candidates running right now are using photos from 20 years ago. How can we trust them if they can't show us their real faces? I love Deb Gillis, but she gave us buy a lot, donated, jumped 10 points, knocking our locals off of building permits to get a permit to build a forever home. I am a successful businesswoman, and I am here 10 weeks after the sudden death of my partner.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Segura. I wasn't born in Islamorada, but I got here as soon as I could. I've been a resident for 28 years. Fell in love with the place, knew I was going to live here even before I moved here in college, and I'm here because I never thought about really getting into politics until maybe a few years ago. Current politicians were the inspiration for that. I'm just going to leave it at that for right now, but thank you for being here tonight.
Well, I'm Deb Gillis. I've been here for 29 years. I own 2 motels. I have 21 trailers that I use for affordable. I did sit on council for 8 to 9 years, depending on how you count it. I have a lot of knowledge of the village. I think I have the history and the experience that's important to have on council. I can actually hit the ground running, and I probably have had more than 50 meetings at the council. I think I bring another perspective to the council.
We're going to have 90 seconds for a specific question to you. Henry, I'm going to start with you. Islamorada struggles to protect its environment and public facilities and resources within a robust tourism economy. A key example is the Phils, where any restriction to public access for day trippers also limits access for landlocked, tax-paying families. How do you strike a balance between access for taxpayers and families and protecting the environment?
For many meetings, I asked for a second to my motion. My motion was to have the Phils 3 parking areas for 5 or 6 cars with 30 minutes. No tents, no cooking, no bathrooms. For 3 meetings, I couldn't get a second. No discussion. The same thing happened with the previous council. They had 8 years to fix that. 8 years. Unfortunately, we didn't do so good either. We've had almost 2 years. It can't happen that way. I have to correct that. And I will. I need the help of different council members. I have to tell you that. So that's where I am on that. I tried my best, and they looked at me like I had 2 heads. But I will not give up. We're going to do something there, right or wrong, but we're going to get rid of those damn cones tomorrow if I could. And we're going to make it a pleasant place to visit without all the amenities that I just spoke of.
Casey, you have 90 seconds to answer this question for you. Monroe County takes a strong administrator approach to governance, and Key West takes a strong mayor approach. How would you characterize the village's approach? Is it clear? Does it need changes?
The village's approach is not and has not been clear for a long time. We developed this great little boys club about 25 years ago and have fought really hard to keep it there. That time is old. That time needs to be dead. We really need to get in there and fix that. We're not a town of equality. We don't fight for each other. We certainly don't empower the women in our community through this council. And we need to go in there and have the time and the effort and communicate with each other to build out the community that enhances the life for everyone here. Every little 10-year-old boy that comes down here with their best friend and falls in love with it needs that opportunity to get down here. Every family that makes every sacrifice to raise their little kids down here need the opportunity to get in here and put in everything that they have to make this community great. It is ridiculous that 5 people have so much power to stand in the way of everyone that has so many talents and so much to offer. The best place that I've ever been in my life.
Angel, you have 90 seconds. While incorporated, Islamorada is still a part of the Florida Keys and Monroe County. How do you plan to interact with the county to improve Islamorada and the Greater Keys community?
The problem with Islamorada and the Greater Keys community is they keep ignoring the Greater Keys community. They like to go off to seminars in North Florida. Cities in North Florida are not going to help us with our problems. Marathon can help us with our problems. They do have more affordable housing. Homestead can help us with our problems. I used to commute 28 miles to work 35 years ago. It took me an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes to do that, to get to the corner of Wilshire and Doheny in Los Angeles, California. We had policemen living 125 miles away. They commuted to work those 125 miles in less time than it took me. But they had a better quality of life, a nicer home, schools for their children. We have many of our workers here that do reach a higher salary level being down here. They're living in Homestead because it is affordable for them, because they can have a nicer home. Our transportation sucks. I'm sorry. We have not dealt with that city. Nobody from here except Jimmy Mooney went up to Homestead on the 30th anniversary of the day to evacuate for Hurricane Andrew. I had friends that lost their homes in Andrew. We were here in the Florida Keys at the time. The problem is we forget our neighbors, and we're not dealing with our neighbors to solve our problems. It does take a village, which is our village, but our village extends to Homestead and Marathon, and we need to stop sticking our heads in the sand and talking and doing nothing. I am Angel Borden. I am committed and dedicated to running for seat 4 and making a difference.
John, you have 90 seconds. The redevelopment of the former bank branch location on Plantation Key into a bar and outdoor music venue has been a hot topic. As a council member, how will you balance community wants with local business development?
Well, you've just got to, just get in the middle of it and take a look at both sides of it. Look at what, the benefit of the business, the business that's being proposed. Take a look at what kind of an impact that will have in the community. As a village councilman, it's our right, or it's our responsibility to protect our residents' right to peaceful enjoyment and quality of life, and that's the first and foremost thing that most people signed up for when they moved to the Keys. Now, with that being said, not all businesses are disruptive. That's some businesses are great; they employ a lot of people. So in a specific situation like that, you have to take a look at, does it fit with the community, the village management or comprehensive plan? Does it fit? Are they asking for a bunch of variances, or are they just going to follow what the village council or what our forefathers 20-some years ago set up as a vision for our community? All of us chose to move here. Most of us weren't born here. Most of us chose to live here and chose to move here because this place, what it was when we moved here. The reason I'm running for council is because I want to live here 20 years from now. Now, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner myself, I have seen exactly what it takes to, the struggles that you have when you're dealing with employees and housing and the insane amount of housing increases and so on. I'm going to talk about a solution for that in my final 30 seconds. Thank you.
Deb, you've got 90 seconds. The pedestrian bridge getting canceled by the new council well after planning was underway and funding secured is an example of how priorities of the council change dramatically from one council to the next. What do you personally plan to do to keep us on track so we can achieve long-term goals for our community?
We do need long-term goals for our community, and we need to come together as not just a 2-year council. We need to come together as a community going forward. How to do that, I really think we need to try to figure out how to get back to 4-year terms so that you've got some of the continuity carrying over and over. And that way and if there were studies going on during that part, and those studies, the final one never did come out while I was on council. The reports that we were getting was people were fairly satisfied. There was a group coming up that wasn't satisfied. But I think it's just a matter of reaching out to the community and making sure that they understand what we're voting on. I think that was part of the issue then. It's the communication of the council they said that we didn't have meetings. There was lots of meetings that happened. I sat through hours and hours of meetings, and it doesn't have to even be that particular subject. It's all subjects that people usually don't hear about the problems until they're at that final decision time, and it makes it really difficult as a council member to know where to go then. So somehow we need to reach out to the public better. I think we are improving the communication at the council with the public. I would want to continue that.
Going back to Henry, you've got 30 seconds.
I'm presently the vice mayor. At one time, I ran the police lodge 20. I was the chamber president for 10 years. I was over the advertising commission for 3 years for the whole county. I was president of leadership for 5 years. I was the largest employer in Monroe County for a number of years. Only thing I have to say is my mother thanks you, my father thanks you, and if you vote for me, the community will thank you.
I appreciate this community that we have now for the support in getting out here and doing the work, and for the opportunity to get out here and do the work. I'm young and spry. I've got 40 years of good hard work left in me, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the first 40, and I'll absolutely ensure that the rest of us enjoy the next 40 as well.
I'm committed to this community as I've always been committed to this community, and everybody in this community, our fishermen, our environment, our nearshore water quality, not our backyard of it, our back doorstep, what's going into our canals from our home, which our previous councils have ignored, which this council has ignored. I'm a successful mother, 4 daughters, all degreed, 1 chef, an attorney, a financial analyst, and 4 grandchildren. They're all working full-time, just like I did. And I am 60 years young. I got plenty of time left and energy.
As business people, one of our biggest concerns is being able to sustain our businesses. And one of the biggest difficulties that we face as business people is employees. That's not going away. In fact, that's getting worse right now. The way that you solve affordable housing is you quit going at it from the building more units that you can't build standpoint, and you take a look at where we can get money, whether that's from the TDC or whether that's from our tax base or something like that. But it's time to start, if we had a fund set up where we could subsidize rents in these expensive former Airbnb properties that are worth, if it's worth $4,000 a month and you raise $2,000, or you're able to contribute $2,000 to qualified working people who support our community.
Thank you, John. Deb, final 30 seconds.
So I sat on council for 8 years, and I'm very dedicated to this community. I think everybody knows me pretty well. I have the time and the energy. I have the experience. I base my decisions on fact, not on personal preference. I have made in the past very tough decisions, and one of them being the sewers. But I have other decisions to be made in the future, the 2023 building permits. I'm a team player, and a community must be first.
Thank you for being with us this evening. You each have 30 seconds to introduce yourself. We're going to start with the incumbent, Carlos.
Thank you very much. My name is Carlos Jimenez, and if it weren't for Key West, I wouldn't be here. My grandparents were actually married in Key West. Have over 40 years of experience in public service. I was a firefighter, fire chief, I was city manager of the city of Miami, I was a county commissioner, I was also the mayor, the strong mayor of Miami-Dade County for over 9 years, representing about 3 million, close to 3 million people. For the last 2 years, I've had the honor of being your representative in Congress, and I want to thank you for that. Thank you, and God bless you.
You have 30 seconds for your introduction.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us here. I'd like to start off by saying my name is Robert Asensio. I'm a military veteran, I'm a retired police officer. I'm also a one-term legislator, former member of the Florida House. I ask you to ask yourselves, are your interests as the business professional women, are your interests as residents being prioritized in Washington? I am Robert Asensio, and I want to be that person to represent you in Congressional District 28. Thank you.
We're going to have 90 seconds, Carlos, but this question is specific to you. The child poverty rate in Monroe County and Florida significantly decreased during the pandemic when the child tax credit was doubled. Would you support permanently doubling the child tax credit? Why or why not?
Yes, I would, and it helps those in the lower income brackets to help with their children, and I certainly would do that. I know that Senator Marco Rubio, I believe, was the one that introduced that bill in the Senate, and I will certainly support him in any efforts to make that permanent.
Robert, you'll have 90 seconds. Federal flood insurance premiums are projected to skyrocket in the coming year. We need to change the risk pool to avoid continued steep increases. So what measures would you support to broaden the flood insurance risk pool in Florida?
That is an issue that affects everybody here in Monroe County and parts of Dade County, if not most of the eastern seashore of the country. So one of the things that I would do is start with readdressing or reformulating the FEMA risk rating system 2.0 that has shown to overrate people's damages, and that is causing insurance companies to drop perspective holders, policy holders. So we need to work across the aisle, cut through partisan divide, work with the administration to ensure that the policies that we provide and produce will expand the national fund, but at the same time ensure relief for all of you who are suffering greatly. Thank you.
Carlos, you have 30 seconds for final comments.
Thank you very much. If you believe that Americans should be safe in their homes, that we need to have a secure border, that we need to have a strong military, that we need to reduce the inflation, that we need to reduce our dependence on foreign oil, that we need to support our freedoms, especially the First and Second Amendments, and that we all as parents need to have a right in what is being taught to our children and how that money is being spent, then I ask for your support and I ask for your vote on November 8th. I'm Carlos Jimenez, number 22 on your ballot. Thank you. God bless you all.
30 seconds for final comments.
I ask y'all to ask yourself, are your interests being prioritized in Washington, D.C.? If you don't agree, I ask you to consider voting for me. I will prioritize your issues from the environment, the water, to your personal rights and freedoms, but also encourage and work with the administration and the other side of the aisle to ensure that workforce development, business development is my priority for our Florida Keys. We make ensure that our environment, our economy, our resilience moves forward in a way that it works for each and every one of us. Thank you so much. I'm Robert Asensio for Congress. Thank you.
You each have 30 seconds to introduce yourself. We're going to start with David.
Thank you to everybody that's being here. And thanks to the Bpw for hosting this very important part of our political process, essential for us to keep our democracy alive and working. I'm David Webb. I'm currently a council member on the Village of Alamorada in my first term, and I'm asking for your vote for a second term in November. I'm a native Floridian. I grew up in Miami. My wife and I always dreamed about living in the Keys, and about 9 years ago, we were able to make that dream available. So I'll have more to say during my question and answer period, but thank you very much.
Tom, 30 seconds.
Hi, I'm Tom Raffanello. I am a candidate for seat 5. I'm a 13-year resident of Islamorada. I would like for you to pick up one of these cards so you can see my qualifications. I've done a lot of different things in executive management, but what I'll tell you is I don't make excuses. I don't tell you my dog ate my homework. I will answer to you, and I'm all about residents. Thank you.
David, you have 90 seconds to answer this question specifically for you. We do not see members of our council actively advocating for our community on the state or federal level. For example, commenting on behalf of the village with the South Florida Water Management District or the Sanctuary Advisory Council. How do you plan to solicit input and represent your constituents with agencies that dictate the future of our community?
Thank you. Some of the positions that I currently sit on are because I'm a council member. I sit on the Sanctuary Advisory Committee, and I have made comments to some of the other organizations that you made independently. But those roles are non-voting. The roles that are given to council members in Islamorada normally are non-voting roles because we're elected politically and not chosen by the individual organization. I happen to think, being a member of the Habitat and Ecosystem Management Advisory Panel for South Atlantic Fisheries Management, which is a National Marine Fisheries Organization, which I do pro bono work, and a lifelong angler and resident of Florida, I pretty much know what's going on, and the way to address some of the issues are incredibly complex. So I take every email that anybody ever sends in to me about anything going on in the village. I think the village needs to be more proactive going forward in communicating to our residents why certain decisions were made and detailing some of the problems. I think it would be very important, and I shared this with my council members and the village manager, we need a public information officer. We need to be providing the narrative for our community from the governing body that's making the decisions. Thank you.
Tom, you have 90 seconds.
The Florida Keys faces steep challenges to prepare for increased flooding from sea level rise and stronger, more frequent hurricanes. What is your plan to enhance village resilience?
Through Commissioner David Rice, I sat through several briefings about different things that are available to Islamorada through Monroe County. There are a lot of different things available. Here's how I've always set up anything I've run, and I've run things for states, for countries, and for different municipalities. I bring in experts, I sit down, I let everybody talk about what's going on, and then we make decisions. I think there are some decisions being made and some alternatives being made at the county level that I would like to hear more specifics on. I don't like to make rash decisions based on projections that are going to happen 200 years down the road. I don't feel like I should burden you with taxes that are going to cost you until we find out. Nobody's going to wake us up 200 years down the road and tell us we were right or wrong. So I want to do things that take care of things right now. And that's how I've always run anything that I've ever handled. It's more on the input I get from experts and from the input I get from the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Any election is important, and your participation by voting is guaranteed by lives that were given in the past to allow us to do that. I would encourage everybody to vote, no matter who you vote for. I would like you to vote for me because of the presence that I bring to the council, and I'm going to speak to my fellow colleagues on the council right now. You will have at least 4 independent thinkers and independent voters on the council if you re-elect the incumbents. I'm not sure that you're going to be guaranteed to have independent thinkers if you choose other people.
Sure. Although I think David is a nice man, I totally disagree with you. I think you need change from top to bottom. Right now, we're subscribing to more of the same. We've been doing this since 1997. We're asking people to give us different answers for the same questions. This is called, it's insanity to expect different answers if you're bringing the same people in there. You need change here if we want to survive. We're headed down the wrong road.
Thank you, candidates, for your commitment to public service and participation tonight. We'd like to thank our audience for attending our 2022 Upper Keys Business and Professional Women Political Forum. We hope that you've received the information necessary to make an informed decision.